Assemble! Stay dandy, baby. This episode of Gleipnir is a monster mash that'll mess you up. This was an awesome kick-ass episode of the series, which of course appealed to all of my favorite things about anime, which is the amazing action scenes that can happen within, and this episode was definitely an action type of episode. There really isn't all that much to this one, aside from the fact that it's pretty much all about Shuichi and Clair going into the mountains to try and find these mysterious alien coins, only to be confronted by a number of freaky monster men and women. There are a few things that are kind of mysterious about this episode, how like the entire scene opens up with a mysterious brand new character who's also looking for these coins, only for her to suddenly be attacked by this one creepy dude with shark teeth, who transforms into a fucking gorilla who proceeds to attack this mysterious girl, and we never pick up on that at all. All I know is it's just promising the viewer that, yeah, we're gonna see more of these characters, and there's going to be a lot of monster fighting in these mountains. But most of this episode follows Shuichi and Clair as they're going through the mountains, and they discover this one monster, who is this guy who transforms into this massive Skull Knight-looking character. He's like a skeleton warrior covered in black with glowing red eyes, and his hands are quite literally giant blades. Big, badass swords. What I love about this character is that it also emphasizes the fact that we are going to see a lot of unique character design from this series. A lot of different monster types with crazy abilities. And what's really interesting about this guy is that he immediately gets into a conflict with Shuichi and Clair. And unlike a lot of the other monsters who seem to be desperately looking for these coins so they can get 100 of them and get some sort of awesome monster prize, this guy is there just to sort of puff out his chest and kick a lot of ass. His entire goal is simply just to find strong opponents and to fight against them, and possibly kill them. However, Shuichi and Clair are going to play it pretty smart against this character, with Shuichi not actually revealing his true identity and making it seem as if Clair is truly the one who is in control and is actually the one who is this transformed mascot monster. And the two immediately begin a very impressive fight with a lot of explosive choreography. I especially love that they decide to use the gun against this guy, which actually does manage to damage his arm just a little bit, but the scene also shows that some of these monsters are going to have incredibly high defense and can actually take one of these bullets. Maybe it's just the fact that his arms are giant blades, maybe it's the fact that his body is a lot stronger and more defensive than the one from that one girl we saw from the previous episode. All I know is it shows that these battles are going to intensify more as the actual series goes on. Shuichi and Clair try to appeal to this guy's sense of humanity, which really doesn't end up working at all. They realize how powerful he is and they have no choice but to run away, and of course this guy decides that he's just going to continue and try and find these people so that he can kill them, and it leads to this really great scene where Shuichi and Clair actually decide to separate, with Shuichi taking control of his monster body and grabbing onto this massive skull guy, and then of course Clair comes in with the gun, getting ready to take him out. This is a really interesting scene, as this skull guy, whose real name is actually Tadanori Sanbei, decides that he's just going to give up right here, and he decides to transform back into a regular human. As he does this, however, Shuichi ends up basically knocking him out by giving him a big old bear hug monster style, which ends up knocking him out, but it's not long before he actually wakes up. Now, this is where we start to dive into this guy's personality just a little bit more, and my first thought when I saw him initially was this guy's going to make for a really cool rival slash villain, but surprisingly enough, by the end of the episode, it looks like Tadanori is going to end up being an ally of Shuichi and Clair, and I love that. You know, I love the dynamic of Shuichi and Clair all together, but to have another third person join their group and become a brand new companion is awesome, and someone who, again, is very different from Shuichi and Clair. He has a little bit more in common with Clair, with the fact that she seems to really just love fighting against monsters, but the fact that this is a guy who really has no motivation outside of just wanting to kick all sorts of ass, it immediately makes him kind of interesting and sort of a nice foil in the other side of Shuichi in a sense. They're drastically different, but I can't wait to see them actually working together. It's pretty freaking cool. They also introduce another monster who doesn't stick around for too long after seeing all of these characters hang out. He's actually been taking pictures out of all of them and actually knows their true identity. And this guy comes out of the woods looking like some sort of a Attack on Titan looking monster. He looks really disturbing, and he claims that he's going to reveal their personalities, otherwise they have to become his personal slaves. Of course, Tadanori isn't going to take all of this and immediately gets into his monster form and finishes this guy off by basically cleaving directly down his body and killing him in one big bloody attack. And yes, my friends, it was awesome. The episode ends with Shuichi and Clair gaining a brand new ally who's going to be incredibly helpful to them as they meet all sorts of other monsters. Will they be friends? Will they be foes? We'll have to find out. So, what's the rundown on this episode of Gleipnir? A very simple but very fun episode of the series. I have a feeling that Gleipnir is going to be either one of the most remembered shows of 2020, or it's just going to go down as sort of like this weird cult hit that only a couple of people watched. Either way, for me, it's been entertaining as hell, and every single time that there's an action episode, it's always incredibly entertaining, especially because the series has no rules into regards of what the monsters in the series are actually going to be capable of. Sometimes it's just going to enhance their strength, sometimes it'll transform them into massive ogreish creatures, and other times it'll transform them into massive hellish knights of destruction, and that's what's really interesting about Tadanori Sanbei. Also, the fact that he's a little older than Shuichi and Clair. He's actually a university student, and he's going to have something of a different view on everything that's actually going on here. But it's kind of cool to actually see a character who simply wants nothing to do with this whole coin thing. He just wanted to get stronger and become a more powerful being for his very own personal reasons, which almost certainly is just going to be because he wants to fight against people and test how big his actual muscles are. But he was really, really cool to watch in this episode, incredibly intimidating, and had an especially cool design. I also love that he has his very own signature martial arts style when he's in his monster form, bending his body completely backwards to amplify the power of his cutting attacks. It allows him to not only have an edge in battle quite literally, but he can even destroy like an entire forest doing it. Basically, the battle that he had with Shuichi and Clair in this episode was really awesome. I don't know if I liked it as much as the first major battle in the series, but again, it's so visually entertaining that there's no way that you're not going to get some sort of fun from actually like watching this fight. It was just really great, and hopefully I'll get to see more of what he's truly going to be capable of in the future, and watching him actually team up with Shuichi and Clair is something that I think is going to be really awesome. Also, I'm glad that they took this character who seemed like he was going to be sort of like a one-off opponent and ended up turning him into someone who's a little more complex. You know, on the outside, he's just a guy who wants to fight strong opponents, but he's definitely impressed by what Shuichi and Clair have actually done, and it's sort of like, you know, messed with his whole inner code of how he does things. So again, it makes him a pretty interesting character in a sea of interesting characters that is Gleipnir. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that this episode was also filled with a preview of a number of different monsters who are going to be appearing throughout the show. At the very end, there is the implication we're going to see more of them, and I don't even know how to describe these guys. One of these guys looks like his monster form is essentially his head just transforms into a giant telescope. There's a guy who's wearing a suit. I already mentioned the guy at the beginning of the episode who transforms into some sort of giant gorilla man. There's the girl who seems to be a little bit more like that first martial arts girl that we saw at the beginning of the series, the track star. Just the creativity that we're going to see from all the different monsters in this series looks like it's going to be really freaking awesome. It also forced me to watch the intro of the show again to sort of like get myself hyped up to see what I'm actually going to see. A lot of the times when I watch a show, if I don't like the intro immediately, I tend to start skipping it. And I wasn't too in love with Gleipnir's intro, but now that all these new characters are being introduced, I made sure to watch it again to kind of see what's going to be happening next, and it's got me really excited to see what's going to be happening in this show. There are some parts about this episode that are not perfect depending on who you are or how you like to consume your anime. There are fan servicey parts of this episode which frankly are kind of off-putting. They don't particularly bother me all that much because I watch a lot of anime and the fact of the matter is I'm used to this stuff at this point. But of course there's a lot of shots that is ogling Claire's body with showing the camera right below her backside or on her chest only. Some of it is very blatant in terms of what they're actually trying to do. And you know what? I'm just going to chalk it up to Japan's culture. That's just the way things are. But some viewers might be a little off-put by that. Like I said, for me personally, it's not that really big of a deal, but it can kind of take me out of the moment when I'm trying to watch a monster, a Skull Knight, battle against a mascot monster. And as ridiculous as it is to say that out loud, well, it's really just fun to say, to be perfectly honest. And overall, at the end of the day, Gleipnir is a fun show. So I'm going to give this episode right here a solid 4 out of 5. Another strong episode from the series, getting us even more hyped up for where the story is going to be heading here. And basically, it's a veritable monster mash. It's going to be great. But you heard my thoughts on the episode. I want to hear yours. Tell me what you thought about this episode of Gleipnir in the comments section below. What do you think about all of the other concurrent storylines that are going on? What do you hope to see from the future of Gleipnir? Sound off in the comments section below. Let's talk about all that stuff in this episode. Good times, guys. Thank you again for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. Use your monster powers to hit that like button. It truly helps out these videos a lot. But if you want to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon, my PayPal. You'll find links for all that stuff in the description box below. If you guys do make a donation through my Patreon, I will do an anime review of your choice. So please make sure to check that out. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time, guys. And as always, stay down there, baby.